Hey ladies, why do people insist on putting us in boxes? Have you ever felt like no matter how much you grow, how much you evolve and change as you naturally should, the people around you, the people in your past, the people in your present are fixated on trying to define you by who you used to be? Have you noticed that? Like they've gotten so used to having this label on you and putting you in this little box with your name on it. It's easier for them if you stay in that box with that label on it. You know, for their own sanity, for their own mental health, for their own ego, it is easier for you to stay in the box they put you in when they met you 5, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, we're going to talk about that because that box is not just a label. It's spiritually, emotionally, and mentally a trap. And it's designed that way for a very good reason. And we're going to get into it today. So in my opinion, I feel like people will put you in a box for one reason and one reason only. And it's very simple. It's to make themselves feel more comfortable. If they can label you, the quiet one, the troublemaker, the failure, the church girl, whatever category they try to slap on you, they don't have to face their own discomfort when you grow, because naturally we are going to shift and we are going to evolve and change. And what's going to happen is your transformation reminds them and is going to remind them of what they've ignored in themselves. People can tell when you are meant to do big things, great things. And if they are threatened by that, or if they have decided to put you in a box because they don't want to see you go further than that, you're going to see them treat you differently when you begin that transformation. So in my opinion, and from what I've seen, people tend to reduce you to something familiar. So a version of you that they used to be able to control, a version of you that they could predict is what you'll see happen. Maybe at one point you were friends with someone who could call you at any time of the day and you would drop everything and come running. They're used to you self-deprecating. They're used to you putting yourself last, not prioritizing yourself for their needs and their selfish needs alone. If you begin to transform into the person who prioritizes self, who is practicing healthy habits for themselves, maintaining boundaries with their friends and family, that person is not going to like that, because now you are coming out of the version of yourself that was easy to be controlled by others. And so now the box they put you in is being threatened. And that's why you're going to feel a shift in energy when you begin to stand on your boundaries and stand on your 10 toes. People who are benefiting off of controlling you or manipulating you are going to distance themselves or treat you differently. Another version of you, you could have maybe been very predictable. Like, let's say you were very black and white. People knew you to be at one job for a very long time or into one thing for a very long time. People kind of had you figured out, or so they thought. This could be in any area of your life. This could be with your faith. This could be with your type in men. This could be with your schooling and what you want to go to school for, what you want to go back to school for. This could be in your career, even in your look. Are you looks maxing now? Pay attention to how people who have labeled you predictable treat you when you begin to level up, when you begin to shift out of old timelines and old ways of being, where you are very, very easy to predict, where all of your movements and all the things you were into and all the things that you did were very routine and mundane. The second you begin to add a little spice to your life, the second you decide to change things up, shake things up a little bit, you're not predictable, and therefore you become a threat, because now people can't gauge where you're going, what you're going to be up to, the places you'll be able to step into, the blessings that are going to come into your life. It threatens people who are banking on you being predictable for the rest of your life, because you being predictable means they could gauge how far you were going to go or what you were going to do next. And for the people in your life who were silently competing with you, this meant that they could hurry up and do the thing before you could, because they knew, oh yeah, this is her thing. This is what she likes to do. This is what she's used to. Let me go ahead and run and do this before she can do it. That's why you need to move in silence in this season. And I said this in my last video, but if you are looking to change your life, evolve, become something new, get into something new, maybe you're going back to school, maybe you're starting a new career path, maybe you're starting a business, maybe you're changing your looks, whatever it is, don't share with people your progression or what you have going on. Just become. You don't have to explain anything to anyone, because guess what? I would rather people think I'm predictable and think they have me all figured out, because when my blessings are being worked on in the background and I'm doing the foundational work on things that people don't have any business knowing about, I can protect my future and my destiny and my identity. And then when it's time to bring those fruits to the forefront, that's when people can be in my business or know certain things about me and what I have going on to a certain extent. But while it's in the seed stage and while it's still being worked on, no one needs to know anything. So the next thing I want to talk about is the danger of agreeing to the labels and the box that they put you in. And here's why it gets deeper, and it's a lot more spiritual than people think. When someone says, you'll never be more than this, or this is just who you are, if you're trying to defend yourself or prove them wrong, guess what? You are still interacting with that curse. That is a word curse. And you trying to defend yourself or prove them wrong is you even entertaining that it's a thing. And this is something that people do that is very sneaky spiritually, is people who like have a provoking spirit on them, people who like to attack people for no reason, get people worked up, essentially energy vampires. They will come around you and be like, you're a liar. Oh, you did this or you did that, or you're not going to get anywhere in life, or this is who you are. The labels and the boxes these people try to put you in and put on you. When you try to defend yourself, you are agreeing with that sentiment. Whether you realize it or not, you even addressing it and dignifying it with a response is putting out energetically that you are in alignment with that thing and what they're saying is true. You're still engaging with that word curse that they put on you. And that's why you have to be so careful, because it can literally be hex that people put on you when they try to like lure you into going into this back and forth about who you are. First of all, let's just look at this from like the outside looking in. Who is anyone to tell you who you are? How can someone try to define who you are? I don't care if this person is in your family, a friend, a man. I don't care who it is. People cannot define who you are. You define who you are. So never defend yourself when someone is trying to label you and put you in a box. Never defend yourself. Simply say, I am not going to dignify that with a response. That's my favorite thing to say these days. When people try to lure me into like going into a back and forth with them about who I am or what my intentions are, or you know what I'm saying? When people try to challenge me and challenge who I am and challenge my identity, I literally tell them, like when they try to be sneaky and be like, oh, well, you never do this. That's not who you are, or that's who you are, or you're not going to get this far, or you constantly do this. You know what I'm saying? And it's always negative. I always just respond and say, I'm not dignifying that with a response. I'm sorry you feel that way. And then I move about my day, because guess what? I am not coming into agreement with none of that shit. I do not come into agreement with any of these word curses that these people like to throw on me. Agreement doesn't look like just saying yes. Sometimes it looks like arguing. It looks like when you go home and you sit and think about that argument you just had, you're internalizing. That's a form of agreement. You're agreeing. You're coming into a covenant with what you were being told. That's not your own. Okay? Whenever you feel like someone else's words or someone else's actions toward you, you're internalizing it and taking it on, their work is being done. You're doing the work for them to make that curse or that hex come to pass, because you are literally taking on what they assume about you and assuming it for yourself. Why would you do that? Also, over-explaining. Who the hell are any of these people for you to over-explain yourself to? Let's be so for real. At our big grown ages, we do not need to explain anything to anyone. That's why, again, what are we going to start telling people? I am not going to dignify that with a response. Because what that tells them is, I am not going to come out of my character to even address that. Nice try, but I am not even going to give you the energy you thought you would get from me in me trying to defend myself or me trying to over-explain myself. That's what a lot of people want. A lot of people just want to provoke you to explain yourself. They want your attention. They want your energy. Starve these motherfuckers, okay? So in the spirit realm, you arguing back, internalizing it when you go home or when you're, around your friends or your man and you're venting to them about something that happened, you over-explaining in the moment. In the spirit realm, that can open the door to word curses, lies spoken upon you. And if you agree with it, even silently, you empower those lies. You empower those lies to have meaning in your life. It's all psychological and it's all spiritual, babes. So it's important to remember you don't owe anyone an explanation for who you're becoming. Who you're becoming is between you and the Most High. Your evolution doesn't need to be validated to be real, okay? And that's something I work on daily, because coming from an abusive household, I constantly was looking for validation outside of myself forever, until I realized that you are going to be chasing demonic validation. You're going to be chasing validation from people who are looking to exploit your need for it. And that's when you run into narcissistic men. And that's when you run into toxic narcissistic women as friends. Validate yourself. Validating yourself is protecting yourself, okay? So now we're going to talk about how to break free from these boxes and these labels. Number one, stop shrinking yourself to fit in. Who cares about fitting in? This is 2025. I don't know if you noticed, but standing out, being different, being a standalone, a lone wolf, someone who can be themselves authentically, that is what's shining. That is what's getting the bills paid. That is what is getting the opportunities. Don't make yourself small to keep other people comfortable, because guess what? You can't please these people. Even if you stay in a box, they're still going to come back and check on the box and be like, I don't like how you look in this box. Let me tweak this, and let me add another label, and let me add another this. You can't please people like this. Their box is not your home. It's a prison. And you were never built for that. Number two, to break free from people's labels and boxes, is to speak only what God says about you. So you know internally the things you feel about yourself that are positive. Guess what? Those are things that were whispered and uttered to you from God from a very young age. You were told what your destiny was. You were told what your identity was. You were told what your purpose is in life. And you were shown it by different gifts you were blessed with, by things that come easy to you, by the people who come to you and say, wow, you're so good at this, or you're so beautiful, you should do this. You know, you've received divine confirmation of who you were, and you've also just had a knowing, right? And so when someone says, you're always this, or you need to be this way, you don't need to debate. Just go back to telling yourself, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am the head and not the tail. And I am who I say I am. Period. And leave it at that. Only agree with the positive traits, the positive qualities, and the positive idea and assumption of who you know to be. Only. Whatever other labels or boxes people try to put on you or put you in, you need to denounce and actively denounce it. So if you come from a toxic family that constantly told you that you weren't going to amount to anything, that told you that you weren't shit, that told you that you were going to be broke your whole life, you know, they tried to put these word curses over you. You do not need to come into agreement with any of that, but it starts by you denouncing what your family told you you were, denouncing what that toxic man who hated you and wanted you to hate yourself said you were, denouncing what that fake friend tried to passively get you to come into agreement with. Denounce it. It's not who you are. You're who you are. You're who you say you are. Number three, in breaking free from boxes and labels, ladies, is, like I said before, move in silence when necessary. Some seasons require you to grow in private, and that's okay. Not everything needs to be televised. Not everything needs to be tracked and documented. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting the sacred process of what your transformation is. Transformation is intimate. Transformation sometimes requires privacy. It requires seclusion. And some of us may still be having trouble transforming alone. You know what I'm saying? I've never had that problem because I've always been a lone wolf. I've always been the person that had to go do the work behind closed doors. No support, no one patting me on the back telling me I'm doing a good job. Just doing. Just me and God in the trenches. So move in silence if you have to. It's okay that people don't know what you have going on. I know a lot of people have this ego thing of like, well, if I don't post it, or if I don't show that I'm doing this, or if I don't tell people I'm doing this, people are going to think I'm not shit. Let them think whatever they want. That's the beauty of people putting you in boxes, ladies. Let them underestimate you. Let them think you're small and predictable and not doing shit with your life, so they can leave you alone, and so your blessings can manifest and materialize in peace. Without all the attacks, without all the eyes on you. Sometimes it's better that way. And you'll find that the bigger the blessing, the deeper the Most High will put you in hiding. The deeper he'll put you in a place of privacy and seclusion, so you can actually have that sacred process of transformation. And finally, ladies, I'm going to leave you with this. Be okay with being misunderstood, okay? If people are misunderstanding you, you don't have to try to get them to understand. Let the box be empty and let people be puzzled about it. You know, you don't have to, again, explain anything to anyone. If people are confused, which they shouldn't, if people are confused about the season you're moving into, or your new life, or your new look, let the box be empty because you don't live there anymore. Burn the box, burn the label, and pop out as who you know you are. Period. So ladies, drop down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll also be leaving my email in the description box below so you can share your stories with me there as well. Have a lovely day, ladies.